Hi, excuse me. Welcome to Open the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation. I'm here along with my co-host.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bonnie Snyder.
And we want to welcome you to today's show. First off, again, we want to always thank John and Rob from WeBeam TV for giving us this platform to bring this information to you guys, and hopefully it can be some help to several people, out there. This month is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming upon the end of that, and I wanted to mention a couple of weeks ago we had Tony from Veterans Counseling Vets, or Vets Counseling Vets,
Mm-hmm.
and he had his event last Saturday in Tampa, and I attended that event representing the foundation. It was an event for suicide loss survivors, veterans.
Right, because May is also Military Appreciation
Right.
Month as well.
Right, and so he's had this event, I guess, for the last 7 years, the Saturday before Memorial Day weekend. And Mayor Castor from Tampa was there attending, and Congressman Castor was there. I met a couple chaplains from MacDill Air Force Base, and actually, I think I have it too. One of the chaplains gave everybody St. Michael's,
Oh, nice.
a special St. Michael's medallion that is from Special Operations.
Nice.
And, I've always wanted a St. Michael's, and this was so special that he gave this to us Saturday. So it was a really good event. And I want to thank Tony for being on the show and for inviting me down there for that event. And
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it. I was in the Midwest at a graduation.
yeah, you were.
Yes.
And how was the graduation?
Oh, the graduation was amazing. It was my granddaughter. She actually there were two simultaneous graduations. My granddaughter was one. At the same time, my best friend's daughter's daughter, so my best friend's granddaughter, graduated as well. So I had my granddaughter Maddie, Madison, we call her Maddie. And Maddie's graduation on Saturday, and then Sunday to celebrate, my friend Lauren, or the granddaughter, her name is Lauren, to celebrate Lauren's birthday. And Lauren, I've known Lauren since before she was born. And the funny story with her is they'd come. I was here in Florida to do it for work, and Lauren had to be probably 6 to 8 months old, and we're on the tram at Disney, and she didn't want her mom to hold her. I was like, "You want your mom to hold her?" Didn't want her grandma to hold her. I was like, "No." She wanted me to hold her. She just met me, so she's 6 months old, and she was so excited that she bit me right here.
Oh no!
And so here now, Lauren is 18. I still we still talk about 18 years ago you bit me on the shoulder.
Oh jeez.
It's like that fight of love.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was amazing. I'm still a little jet. I'm just getting back, so I'm still a little jet lagged. But I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, you got in really late.
Glad to be back though.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you back in
I'm
Florida.
glad for our guest today too.
I am too. Yes, we have a great guest. Like we said, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. We're coming to the end of this month, but we wanted to invite a special guest. She is the executive director of NAMI Pasco, and I'm going to have you introduce her because I'm going to butcher her last name.
The guest we have on today, God puts people into our path, those of us who are faith-based, and sometimes they just happen. But I am, especially proud to be able to introduce our next guest. Not only is she the executive director of NAMI Pasco, but I am also very proud to claim her as a personal friend. she got me through some, losing Aiden and then the follow-up with Patrick. She always starts the day off on one of her pages with "Who can I pray for today?"
Yes, early in the morning. It's like the
Yes,
first feed, yeah.
and we're going to have her talk about that a little bit today, as well as her thankful three. So it is our pleasure to introduce to our viewing audience Miss Debbie Proulx. Debbie, I hope I didn't butcher the name. But guys, if if there, I'm tearing up here just because if there are angels on earth, she is definitely one of them. And so, Debbie, we welcome you to the show. Thank you for taking time to be here, especially during this month of Mental Health Awareness Month.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Ooh. So.
And I didn't put the tissue box on the
I
table
know.
today.
So, Debbie, if you could, can you please tell, for those who may not understand, what NAMI stands for, what NAMI is, can you please explain, what is NAMI?
Sure. So NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We provide support, advocacy, outreach, and education to those with mental health conditions and their families. And that's just our quick little elevator pitch. Obviously, there's so much more involved in what we do.
So, Debbie, can you tell us what got you involved with NAMI? What led you on the path that you're on to what you do now, and what is the role of the executive director?
Sure. So my role here is overseeing everything. Thankfully, we have a gazillion volunteers that are involved in every aspect of what we do. They've been fantastic. They will do anything and everything we ask them to do, but that does require some oversight, and that's where I come in, is overseeing them, making connections with our community, doing our grants and our fundraising. What got me involved, I wasn't expecting to have to answer that question today, so I'm a little ill-prepared here. In 2014, I was engaged to a state trooper, and unfortunately, he did die by suicide. So what I do here is very important to me.
Usually that's where we find that our calling after, a tragedy like that.
Or some life event or something,
Right, something
and
huge.
something touches us, and it's like, if I can do for someone what someone did for me.
Right.
Debbie, I'm sorry for your loss, and here we are.
Right. Yeah,
know.
and I'm sorry for your loss too. Aren't you the first executive director that NAMI Pasco has had?
Absolutely. They have actually never had a paid person ever working for the organization, and we've been here for 33 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and I wasn't really aware of that, and until you became executive director. I've met many of the volunteers over the last few years, but it was a blessing that NAMI Pasco got an executive director, and it was you.
Okay.
Oh, so being the first executive director for NAMI Pasco, how has that been, and what, if any, changes or additions that has happened to the organization and our community since you become executive director?
So I'm sorry, they are doing something outside our public works department. I don't know if you want me to pause and put on some headphones, or if there's anything I can do to help that on my side.
I don't hear
I
it.
don't hear it.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay. As long as you guys don't hear it, we're good. But to answer your question, so coming on was definitely different. I wasn't aware that the community did not know about us, seeing as we are a 33-year-old organization. So that required a lot of networking, a lot of outreach. And of course, 6 months after I started, we had COVID. So it's been a very interesting time. But because they now have an executive director, we are allowed to apply for a lot of grants and funding that we wouldn't have been allowed to apply for without an executive director. And also having the executive director gives them the opportunity to run programs literally every day of the week and to be really, front and center in the community mental health.
That's amazing, and
Yeah.
of course, we're biased. You do, you do it so well. Um, with this being Mental Health Awareness Month, and we talked to our viewers, to let them know that just because May is that month, of course, those of us in the field know that the spotlight on mental health happens, all 12 months of the year, but we use May as a let's put a huge spotlight on it. Can you talk to us a little bit, Debbie, about what do you see as the link between mental health and suicide?
There's a huge link. I mean, especially if we're, putting depression and anxiety into the mix and not just focusing on the serious mental health conditions. I'm seeing that, a lot of people aren't able to receive the help that they need, especially in Pasco County. And it's leading to suicides because they're feeling desperate and like there's no help out there for them when they're in these deep pits of despair.
Well, do you find too that, I mean, with suicide and the mental health correlation, it's not one thing that is the cause or the catalyst. It's a combination.
Absolutely. And it seems like, everybody's looking for that one reason why something horrible happened, such as somebody taking their life. But it's not that simple. There's all these little things that happen that lead up to, somebody feeling like everything's going to blow up and there's no way to turn, no way to fix it. And even if they could, they don't even know what to ask for help with because there's so many things that have happened that they feel they need help with learning how to cope with.
Can you tell us some of the programs that NAMI Pasco has available so that our viewers, if there's anybody out there, and we have the information to get a hold of NAMI Pasco too. Rob puts up the contact information from the website and all. But can you tell us just a little bit more of the programs that you have? And I do know that, I mean, you've expanded the programs tremendously since you've been there. I've had to refer some people to to you, and unfortunately, it was short-lived. But the, people really need it, and they really need to know that, we do have help out there. And it's getting more and more as we are getting more resources for our community.
Absolutely. So our programs right now, we have virtual support groups, we have in-person support groups, we have added a color and calm for those who don't want to sit and actually have, that in-depth discussion about their feelings. It's more casual. We have support groups for family members and friends. And we also have educational programs from everything from parenting a child with a mental health condition to the person themselves having a mental health condition, to educating the family and the loved ones. And then we try to do a bunch of special events too for our participants so that, no matter what you need, we should be able to find a place where you're comfortable fitting in regards to your mental health.
Debbie, is there a cost to these programs, and how would someone, be linked to the programs or the services?
Yeah, so none of our programs carry a cost at all. For our virtual support groups, they can just join us. All the information's on our website on how to access that. There's no registration required. For our in-person, unfortunately, because of COVID and the regulations that we do have to have them register. There's a link on our website to do that, and they're welcome to use a fake name if they don't want to give their real name. That's fine with us. Same thing with our educational programs. Because of the limited space, we do need them to register. Again, there's a link, a short little tiny form that they fill out, telling us their history with mental health conditions and where they'd like to be placed. Or they can also email or call us if they're not comfortable filling out that information.
And that word free, comes in because so many people who are, struggling with mental, illnesses, they find that there aren't enough resources, or if there is a resource, they don't take my insurance, or, they take my insurance, but the copay is in the stratosphere, so along with cost barriers. Debbie, can you talk about what are some other barriers that you see that, people who either are struggling with mental illnesses are experiencing, and what are, some resources that NAMI uses to help people overcome these barriers?
A big one for us is stigma, even as far as, going to the library and checking out a book on mental health. One of the things that we were asked for when we came to our new location, we do have a brand new office, thank God, was to do a mental health resource library, which sounded to me like a silly thing because we're less than a half mile from the library. Why wouldn't you just go there? And a lot of our participants said, well, we don't want the librarians to know that, we're checking out these books. And that was very shocking to me, and still shows that there is so much need to have these conversations and to get rid of that stigma that's associated with having a mental health condition. It's just like any other condition, cancer, diabetes, anything like that. They shouldn't be ashamed of it. One of our other barriers to people getting care is the wait time. The wait time around here is usually 3 to 6 months for somebody who's on state insurance. So we're becoming that placeholder for them until they can get into a place. Then there's just, they don't want to go to a hospital setting. There's issues with transportation. There are so many little issues that you don't even think of that could affect somebody's reason for not going to get mental health care, or for not being able to get the mental health care that they need, even if they are trying desperately to get it.
And you're reading my mind because my next question surrounded that word stigma, and you are correct. We deal so much with, stigma as it relates to, mental health and suicide. And so, organizations like, NAMI, or, I think of other organizations, the Alliance for Substance Addiction Prevention, have these campaigns or mechanisms or strategies to, change the language. We used to say people committed suicide. And, of course, we've, destigmatized the language to say, died by suicide, because of the, how some people will, what is the context when they hear that word committed something? You always think committed a crime.
Right. And, one of the chaplains at the event last week, she talked exactly about that. the changing the word, because like you said, somebody who dies by suicide, they didn't commit anything. It's really no different, as with mental health issues, than having cancer or, Alzheimer's or, anything. And changing that language is so important. And even there's still a lot of professionals that have not come around to that, because I hear it a lot and I just cringe.
Yes.
And I'm like, you're in this profession, you should know better. And but it's been ingrained in our society and in our language for so many years that it is so hard to get that verbiage changed unless you, like us, deal with it on a daily basis.
I do. I find, myself, both within the field and even, when I'm in other meetings, I'm in a faith-based, community meeting right before retape, so I'm in that meeting, and then I, come over to the studio for our show. And whenever I hear someone say they committed suicide, I died by suicide.
Yeah, I know.
Debbie, as we're talking about, stigma and, how people deal with these issues, one of the things that has come up, and Tammy and I have highlighted on the show, is how some people feel that when we talk to someone who might be in crisis, when we talk to someone who might be dealing with a mental illness or might be contemplating suicide, the stigma, the mistaken belief is if you talk about it, by default, we are planting the thought or the idea in that person's head. Can you speak to that a little bit, like, from, your perspective, or NAMI's perspective? What do you say to someone who it's like, I want to talk to my friend about this, but I'm afraid that if I talk to them about their depression, I'm going to talk them into suicide?
Yeah, so we've actually had a lot of training on this for any of our facilitators or our group leaders. Just asking the question is not going to put the idea in their head. And in fact, that's one of the best things that you can do, is be direct and just come right out and ask. And then if hopefully they will tell you the truth as to whether they are or not. And you can get them the help that they need if they are in fact thinking that. We have a whole series of questions that we go through to determine what level of care we need to get for the person. And our first one is, are you thinking of suicide?
Yeah, and people are like, well, are you thinking about it? So I wasn't thinking about it until you asked me, and again, people don't realize that, oftentimes just asking the question, is the one thing that person might need to show somebody cares.
Well, yeah, exactly. And there is also also another side to that even asking the question might, and depending on the person and the situation, they might get upset with you. But my response is, wouldn't you rather have that person upset with you than have to go to their funeral?
Yes.
Right. And you can always preface it too with, I just feel like I have to ask you this. This is on my heart right now. Please don't be upset with me for asking if you're not. And just make it all about, your concern and what you're feeling, so that the pressure's not on them.
Right. And it's about them.
Mm-hmm. It is about them. Debbie, what do you see has been the, whether we can call it the link, correlation, the effect of COVID on, mental health and or suicide?
So when I first started, I've only been here a year and a half, NAMI was focused on serious mental health conditions. Then COVID happened, and we realized that there was this huge need to focus on depression and anxiety, because they have just increased tremendously. And there's no help for them in regards to COVID. Right now, there's not those services in place. Nobody is understanding the long-term effects of it. Last year alone, our calls for services increased by 1,455%.
Wow.
So there is definitely a huge correlation there.
Have you seen it more so in a certain population than others, or age groups, or is it across the board?
So when we first went into the lockdown, NAMI Pasco did not, but as the county did, we saw a lot of our seniors needing the services, feeling lost, isolated, because a lot of them did not have access to the technology. If they did have access, they were afraid to use it. But as time went on, it's really been anyone, any social economic class, any age group, anything. And it doesn't really matter whether they were working or not working. It seems to affect everyone in some way. And there's no saying that, those that are working and making $100,000 a year aren't having an effect from COVID just as much as, ours that are making $20,000 a year and not working.
And Debbie, what about from a cultural perspective? Have you seen any, differences amongst, the different cultural groups? Because, in our field, we talk a lot about, being culturally competent and dealing with things from, or looking at things from the viewpoint of, the different diverse populations that we work with. What have you seen, if anything, from, the cultural perspective? Is one, what's the word I'm looking for, demographic, being affected, or impacted more than this demographic over here?
So I wouldn't say that they're necessarily being impacted more. However, on the back end, I do notice that some of the demographics, the cultures, are not as willing to accept the help. We've had a lot of younger members come to us needing assistance, and their family is not wanting them to be a part of having that assistance. And we're noticing it a lot in one particular culture, and that's really scary. And we know that something needs to be done to change that. So we are trying to get more into those locations where that population is higher and have those conversations.
As we, not to put you on the spot, mind you, as we're rolling into, next month is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And, as I'm looking at the different demographics and we're talking, stigma and, access to care and, health equity, it is, often I know from, looking at, say the African, as we go into minorities, pray your way out of this. So there is a resistance, often to seek out, mental health, or we keep it in the, it's like we, it's kept within the family.
Right.
How do you, so Debbie, when you have situations like this where you have an individual that is reaching out, hey, we need assistance, we want, I, as the individual, I recognize I need help, I want help, I find NAMI, but then I have, so if I'm a younger person, my mom or my dad or, some family member, no, we don't do that. How do you overcome that? Like, how do you deal with, let me kind of do a role reversal. I'm the mom now who says, hey, Ms. Debbie, we don't do mental health in our family. We don't use professionals. How do you address that?
So more often than not, the parents won't even have that conversation. They're not even open to having it. On occasion, we have had, one or two parents that have been willing to talk about it, and just giving them the statistics and overview of what's happening, what we're seeing in our groups, and the connections that are made, focusing on those connections instead of on the mental health condition, and how those connections help people grow. In those two instances that I'm thinking of, that was that step into having, their sons be allowed to join our programs.
We talk a lot also about, ways that we cope, strategies that we use to, deal with, mental health and, suicide loss. And I want to shift focus for a moment and talk about what you call your thankful three. And, again, I'm, I'm getting a little emotional here. I remember the first time I saw, I was in a webinar, I think it was a webinar that you had hosted, where we were talking about the thankful three. And I can't remember whether it was a Mother's Day or, it was around a holiday, and, correct me if I'm wrong. And I remember the question being asked, what are you thankful for? And, of course, I see every day on, my social media feed, Debbie's Thankful Three. Talk to us about Thankful Three, and why is that such a, like, you don't miss a beat with it, I guess, is what I want to say. And like I said, I know how it impacts me. Where did Thankful Three come from?
So it's something that I've been doing for almost 8 years now. It started out of realizing that I needed to make some type of a change. I was very depressed. I was focusing on the negative, like, all the time. I was just a completely negative person. And I said, well, let me try this. Every night I'm going to do 3 things that I'm thankful for. See if it helps. In a week, I'll reevaluate. If it doesn't help, then forget it. There's no hope. I started, and I noticed by the 3rd day that, like, I was looking for things to be thankful for, and it was requiring me to pay attention during the day to find those little things. I mean, and some nights it's like, I'm thankful for my pen because, nothing good has happened that day and it feels like it was a horrible day. But even thinking about, that pen gets you out of that negativity. So whether it's a huge thing like my friend just had a baby and that's great and wonderful, or if it's something silly and what would seem insignificant, it still helps my brain, at least, get out of that negative thought pattern. And I find that I carry it with me all throughout the day because I'm aware that at the end of the day, I have to come up with those 3 things. And it has been the single best thing that I have personally done for my mental health.
And I like, what I heard you say in there is it forces you to focus on, like, if at the end of the day, you have to highlight what are the 3 things I was thankful for today. It does force you to look for those little things. In addition, and I'm just throwing it out there because you're amazing. Who may I pray for today? How did you start that? And again, for myself anyway, I'm on there every day. Deb, just give me the usual. It's like sounds like going to Starbucks or
Right.
McDonald's or something. It's like, what do you want? I want give me the usual. But who may I pray for today? And I'm going to presume that that is, what's the word I want? It helps you, like it's refreshing, it's uplifting, to you to, like, who can I pray for? That's, at the same time, several of us come back as like, well, let's thank him for you. Where did, who can I pray for today come from?
Yeah, so absolutely. It definitely gets me, again, out of my own head. It helps me to feel like I'm doing something valuable and worthwhile. It actually started in 2014. Again, I was very depressed, very sad. I am Catholic. So during Lent that year, I decided that I was going to do that as my way of giving back. Let me do this, for all of Lent, and I'll be done with it after that. But I found that it was fantastic. Like, not only were people feeling better from me, just praying for them and knowing that somebody cared, but it was also helping me to feel better. So it's been something I've done every day since, and I couldn't imagine not doing it at this point.
I couldn't imagine my first thing in the morning when I look at Facebook not seeing your post. And
Exactly.
it is every morning early. Debbie has it on there, and even just seeing the post and reading her saying who may I pray for today. It for me even starts out my day even better. I don't have to respond.
Exactly.
I just have to see it and read it, and know she's out there doing that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I see it, like I said, it's one of the first things, if not the first thing I see every morning. Um, and, like you, Tammy, sometimes I will put, this is what I need today. Because I sit back, I think for me, I look at it more, a little comical here, just for a moment. All right, if
Keep you
he's
from
not
crying.
going to hear me, I know he's going to hear
Hear
Tammy.
Debbie.
It's like that.
That's
Not that we do
cute.
anything, negative. It's like it's like just in case. You know, not that I grew up in a spiritual family, but yeah, I find myself sometimes. All right, just in case I had a misstep this week.
little bit extra.
Let me kick it over to somebody that I know has not had any missteps. So, Debbie, how do, I'm just a person off on the street, and, or, someone who has, tuned in and they're watching, and they're like, NAMI, this sounds like a really good organization. Um, what are some ways that people can get involved with NAMI, and how would they go about, taking part or participating in NAMI or getting involved with NAMI?
So for participants, again, they're welcome to join any of our virtual groups, or register for our in-person. If it's somebody who wants to volunteer, they can send me an email directly at executivedirector@namipasco.org. I'd be happy to place them wherever they are comfortable being placed. If it's somebody who wants to make a donation, we're always up for that as well. Um,
Gotcha there. We know.
our facilitators are all peers. So if somebody with a mental health condition wants to lead a group, we would be happy to have them be trained to do that as well. There's really a lot of ways to be involved, whether it's being a participant or a volunteer, or, that one time I just want to come and see what I can do for one day and see if I can make a difference that day. We never turn anyone away from helping.
So what I'm hearing is, in order for someone to be involved with NAMI, not as, I'm going to shift focus for a moment to I'm not someone who is coming to NAMI for services, but I want to come and help. Whether it's volunteer, facilitator, et cetera, et cetera. That individual does not necessarily have to be a mental health professional or hold a degree. There are something that, I'm, the, I don't want to say stereotypical, stay-at-home housewife, who, hey, during the day, the children are in school, or I'm the retiree who I've had a career, but I still want to do something, out in the community. NAMI is something that they can get involved with.
Absolutely. Um, Not necessarily working with our participants because that does require training, but we're willing to train anybody at all. They don't have to have any pre-qualification. But if somebody just came to us and said, I don't want to go through all that training, but I want to do something, we'd put them in a position of, something as behind the scenes as data entry, or that front line making connections in our community, making phone calls, sending emails, going to events, being a table sitter, really anything that they are comfortable with.
So if I were not a mental health professional and I wanted to lead a group, NAMI would teach me how to lead a group.
Absolutely. As long as you're here for that group that you're leading, we'd be happy to get you set up with that training.
That is awesome.
And so, something that is so needed, in the community, because again, as we look across, all demographics, resources for mental health are often, unfortunately, far and few between. Debbie talked, a while back about, waiting lists, or, waiting time between I need to see somebody, whether, I think about it, whether the civilian sector or, I see it, also too as a veteran, you think that, oh, there's, you guys can go in and, you can see anybody anytime. But that's not always the case, so again, it's really nice having, what did you call it, Debbie, the landing spot, for someone, to, basically, as I'm going to hold you in my hands until, you can get to somebody else. But Debbie, are there times that you find that, people contact you and you are that landing spot and they say, you know what, I don't need to go to someone else. I've landed here and you are servicing or satisfying the issue that I'm dealing with. I don't need to go to the professional. I don't need to see a therapist. I don't need to see a psychiatrist. I don't need medication. You're it for me.
So it happens all the time. My personal take on it, Lo, is we could all benefit from being in therapy and from having that connection with a professional. But we do have many, many people in our program who, once they're here, they don't go to those professionals. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing that happens here a lot.
Well, I find with some of the people that we help and refer is one of the barriers is the cost of going to a professional. You're in the midst of a crisis, and then you have to pay someone this extraordinary amount of money that they may not have, or maybe they do have, but in the state of mind that they're in, it's like, I'm already going through something really horrible, and now I have to pay this to go get help, is a barrier that I find with a lot of the people that we help.
Well, I think the also thing too that I find, and I'm speaking to this, as we all know, I am a mental health professional. Building rapport. Rapport is extremely important when it comes to dealing with with someone, regardless of what they're dealing with. And if my first stop is, say, NAMI, and I've connected with, and I'm going to use Debbie, for example, I've connected with Debbie, and she's the first person that I talk to, and I've developed this rapport with her. One of the barriers that I see is I don't want to go to someone else. I've already connected with you. And if I am in a spot, let me make this personal for a second. When I think of my own journey, with after losing Aiden, and I'm going to say more so after Patrick. Not to minimize losing Aiden,
Well, you had a double whammy there.
I did have the double whammy, but
know.
Patrick being my child,
Right.
and he lived at home and everything else like that. But anyway, with the whole Rapport thing, it is, oh my gosh, how do I deal with this? And of course, there's that. Okay, I'm a mental health, I'm a mental health professional. I should know how to deal with this. And it's like, no, your brain goes someplace else. But with the whole Rapport thing, it's like, you're talking to this person and you're connected, and you get to a place where we talk about those stages, and it's not always linear, but you think you're over here, and then all of a sudden, and I've had this happen to me a couple of times. I hate to do this to you, but I'm being reassigned. Like I said, I'm a veteran, and again, I'm not bashing the VA, but I think of it, in the military, PCS, permanent change of station, we get orders to go someplace else. Sorry, got to leave you. And, so I have to come right back around and start my story all over again with a new person, rebuild rapport. And then you get over here, it was like, all right, I'm at this point. It's like, I'm sorry, got to leave you. You're getting somebody new, and that clock keeps getting reset. So oftentimes, I wonder, for you, Debbie, how much of that do you think is, I've told my story, I've connected with you, I am at this place right now, which, the situation still might, hurt or, still be painful, or challenging. However, I don't want to have to reset and go to reconnect with someone else, because the additional barrier to that is, what if the rapport that I am attempting to establish with this person over here is not the same as the rapport that I've had with my
Well,
landing spot.
and two, on the other side of that, it could start off that way. You may not connect with that first person you reach out to, and don't let that stop you from continuing to find that. There is going to be that person out there, but that happens too. That happened to me when my first husband died. The person that I was sent to, I mean, that just did not work at all, and I stopped. But that's not what you need to do. You just because you don't connect with that first person, don't let that stop you from reaching out and finding the person that you do connect with.
And Debbie, what are your thoughts on that? The rapport, either good rapport, and I don't want to move on, not so good rapport, although, with you, there's always good rapport. But anyway, not so good rapport. And so now how do you talk someone into, okay, I'm obviously not a good fit for you. Let me get you to someone else. Debbie, give me your thoughts on that, please.
So it's really funny that you brought up this topic, because this past 3 months, we tried to do a trial with one of our community partners, having them make phone calls and form connections one-on-one with our participants. And what we found was a lot of our participants weren't willing to be involved simply because it wasn't run by us. Even though we were involved with it, they didn't want to trust those outside organizations. So we do see that a lot. We see people getting very attached to our services, sometimes to the extreme. And we try to work with that to get other services involved, to have them reach out and find, other things that they might be happy trying to do, even if it's not in the mental health realm. But that doesn't always work. So we stay where people are at. We stay there as long as they need to stay in that place. If this is their safe place and they're not wanting to reach out, we will sit with them until they are ready to do that. As far as people not being a good fit here, we've only had that happen once. Um, we gave it a very gallant effort, and it just did not work out. So we provided other resources for that person. And we found that that worked out pretty well that way.
And that's key, knowing how to navigate through, those, whether it is a good connection, not so good, I hate to say bad connection, good connection, not, good rapport, not so good rapport, and that, I understand, that you have this connection with me. However, I am a temporary. And I think I find it's important that we speak about that, up front. So Debbie, as we round out, the show today, and we're getting down to our last, 5 minutes, so again, we want to, thank you, so much for just the person that you are, of course, and, educating our viewers on, NAMI and what NAMI has to offer. What parting words, if any, do you have for our audience, as it relates to, the topic of, mental health, suicide, or, words of wisdom from Debbie?
No pressure there. One would be just start the conversation. Whether you're somebody, struggling, or you're somebody who sees a friend, a family member, a loved one struggling, just have that conversation with them, or have that conversation with somebody that you trust, because there is help out there. There are people who care. There's always someone who's going to care about what you have to say. If you're somebody struggling and you don't know where to turn, reach out to us. We're always here. We'll always listen. We'll always provide whatever support you need. We won't force you to do anything you're not comfortable doing. But you will find, if you come to us, we are a very welcoming community. We even have a community online that once you're a member here, a participant here, you're able to be part of that. And really, there's pretty much 24 hours of somebody who will respond to you and be that person to walk alongside of you and offer you support and caring and love and all those good things, and hopefully lift you up to a place where you're feeling better.
And we do have in our purple folder, NAMI is one of our listed resources. So, and we're proud of that.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
And, it's like, we've said before, not one organization can do this on its own. It takes all of us, and we all have to work together, and we're happy to have NAMI as, one of the main resources that we have, for our Purple Folder program.
Yeah, it definitely takes a village. And like Debbie said, as Tammy alluded to, along with NAMI, there are so many other resources, or a plethora of resources out that people can reach out to, when they're dealing with, whether it's a mental health, or a suicide issue. Debbie, as said it eloquently, just start the conversation.
Exactly.
Don't
be afraid.
Yeah,
It is what's needed, so much. And, we've even said that, since we started the show. That's why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we're here. So we want to thank you so much, Debbie, for being on the show, and for everything that you've done, in the community, because really since you've come on board as executive director of NAMI, it's really brought out the spotlight a lot more about the services that are available in our community, and what has expanded, in the last year and a half, 2 years. It's amazing. So we really thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we look forward to Who May I Pray For every morning.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me and for allowing me to share all that we do. And thank you guys for what you do. Seriously, like there is not another organization like the Bobby White Foundation that I have ever seen. And I think if it was available when I needed it, that would have been a tremendous help. So thank you.
Actually, when I was at the event this weekend, I gave a gal one of our purple folders, and she just held it and was like, and she had lost her dad as a teenager, and she was like, I wish I had this back then, you know. But that's why we're here. At least we can do it now. So again, thank you so much. And there is help out there. There's hotlines. We have several hotlines that you can reach out to. I don't think I gave those to Rob this week. But we're here, NAMI's here. There's other organizations. You may not feel it at the time when you're going through it, but reach out to a friend or a trusted family member, and they'll get you to the right place.
Absolutely.
So, as we always close out the show, we just always want people to remember there's always hope. We have our T-shirts that show that, with a helping hand. People are there for you.
All right. Thank you for watching,
Thank
guys.
you.